What is going on, everybody? Joe Kiger here again to present my 100 subscriber special. It may not seem like a lot of subscribers, but it genuinely does mean a lot to me that over 100 people at this point have enjoyed my content enough or been a good enough friend to me to hit the subscribe button. So I appreciate each and every one of you, especially considering that this YouTube channel is kind of just like a passion project of mine. I just use it to upload whatever I want, basically. If I feel the need to creatively express myself through music or through a stupid edit or a movie review, you guys have enjoyed some of it, and that means a lot to me. So thank you all for 100 subscribers. And on the theme of 100, today we're going to be counting down my top 100 IMDb picks. So these are my ratings, so I can't get mad at myself, right? We'll see. Let's get into it. These are going to be my top rated items on IMDb. So we're going to see like 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s, maybe some 8 out of 10s. And I say the word items because it ranges from a movie to a show to a miniseries to an episode. So it can be any of those things. Most of them are just going to be movies. And at the beginning, my 10 out of 10s, I just have to preface, some of them are memes, okay? Some of them are things that have just become popular in meme media that I felt the need to be like, yeah, that's a 10 out of 10, just for the memes. And you'll see that with my first entry. So here we go. Keep that in mind. Number 1. Oh, Lord in heaven. That's my boy. I'm the man. Corey in the House is, I don't know why it's the number 1 thing, but I did give it a 10 out of 10. If you guys ever have the time, please look up the Corey in the House reviews on IMDb and just read through some of them. You will not be disappointed and you will have a laugh. Corey in the House, best anime of all time. It's number 1. On a more serious note, we have Band of Brothers. I honestly just feel like this is the best show that's ever been made. I think this is considered a mini-series because it's just like 10 episodes or 8 episodes or something. But it's just flawless storytelling. It moves me every time I watch it. And Band of Brothers is phenomenal. Okay, Inception. And then Shawshank. So these are 2 of the things that are going to be like super highly rated for the public as well. That goes for Band of Brothers too. Inception, I just feel like it might be the pinnacle of Christopher Nolan, like his best work. The Dark Knight is fantastic and The Prestige is up there as well. But Inception is just, it's so good. And I feel like people don't talk about it enough. But Inception is fantastic. Shawshank, I just feel like is one of the best stories ever told. Speaking of The Prestige, I cannot find flaws in these Christopher Nolan movies. At least some of them. Let's not talk about Dunkirk or Tenet. But yeah, The Prestige is just another like flawless Christopher Nolan movie. And I love the cast, I love the acting, I love the story, everything. SpongeBob. We go from The Prestige to SpongeBob. I just have a lot of nostalgia for SpongeBob, and I truly feel like the first 3 seasons, which I think they had 3 seasons before the movie came out, and then the writers changed, and then it just all became a mess. But the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob, I feel like it's the best cartoon ever. It still makes me laugh to this day. I'll go back and watch episodes from season 1 or 2 or 3, and they're all funny and they're all good. And can I mention SpongeBob's production music? Oh my gosh, man. I love the SpongeBob production music. I almost made a video on that one day, but I couldn't figure out how to make it. Another Christopher Nolan, 10 out of 10, The Dark Knight. It deserves the praise that it gets, and I don't say that very often. But The Dark Knight is just one of the best stories ever told. The characters are so good. Mission Impossible Fallout and War for the Planet of the Apes. Okay. These are 2 franchises I really love as far as what they've come out with recently. Speaking of War for the Planet of the Apes, that's my boy. And can you see him there? Caesar's one of my favorite characters. And then Fallout, I just feel like it was the best combination of action but also storytelling, like as far as the Mission Impossibles go, and I just enjoyed it so much I had to give it a 10. Same thing for War for the Planet of the Apes. Just really good storytelling, really good characters. I loved how they wrapped everything up in the end. This honestly might be my favorite movie of all time. Go check it out if you haven't already. We have a meme here. Stephen Reed's Weeper Cooks. I believe this was brought to my attention when I watched an H3H3 video like years ago, back when H3 was not problematic and cancerous. But it's just like a dude talking to college students about like easy meal hacks, like nachos in the microwave. But I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that's rated this a 10 out of 10. Where's my cursor? Okay. Let's check this out real fast. It literally has a 9.9. Only 190 people have rated it. I am proud to be one of those people. Check this out if you need just a nice little depressing chuckle. The dude's actually really depressing. But anyway, that's another pick I have. Oh, God. Oh, no, not Black Adam. No, go back. I cannot stand The Rock, by the way. I mean, like, he's a good guy, but his movies are trash. Anyway, here at number 11, we have an episode. I don't remember how they pronounce that, but it's the episode in Squid Game where, spoiler alert, everyone dies. It's the marble game, and it's like where people become friends. Like the old man is like, we're old, that word, and then he dies. And it was before they made him the villain, so like I just had the most like aggressive emotional reaction I've ever had to anything watching this show. So I had to give it a 10 out of 10. It might be the only like singular episode I've rated on IMDb, but it moved me that much. I cried for like half an hour after this episode. It was just flawlessly done. The characters, all of them, I just got so attached. And speaking of being attached to characters, Toy Story 3, 10 out of 10. Probably my favorite of the trilogy, which I will say trilogy again, like I've said in other videos, because there is not a fourth Toy Story. You cannot convince me. Even though I have seen it, it doesn't exist. Toy Story 3 was just, again, like, I can't find flaws with these movies that I have 10 out of 10. I really like that they get trapped at Sunnyside, and I felt like Lotso was a great villain. But then the emotional appeal of, like, Andy going to college, all the toys being, like, left with another person, it was just such a good ending. And that's another common denominator here. A lot of these movies, to me, I feel like have perfect endings, and they're very satisfying. The Incredibles, 10 out of 10. And then another Mission Impossible. The Incredibles, if it weren't for the Toy Story trilogy, I would probably say it's definitively the best Pixar movie. I just like how intelligent the writing is, and the themes are really deep, especially for a kid's movie. Like a guy attempting suicide at the beginning. It deals with really heavy topics, and then the whole concept of like everyone being special but no one being special, Syndrome's whole motivation. He's a great villain too. The action is good. The music is fantastic. This is one of like Michael Giacchino's earliest soundtracks that like everyone started loving, and then he started just cranking out giant titles like Jurassic Park or Ratatouille or Star Wars Rogue One. Great movie. Rogue Nation, I just love it. I started loving the Mission Impossibles after I saw 3. I really liked 3, and then 4, it was even better than 3 probably. 5 was even better, and it's just like they kept improving. The action is so good, and the characters are just, they're really lovable to me. Like the whole crew, you got Luther back in this one and Benji, and then they introduced Ilsa. It's just a great crew and a great movie. Okay, here's an interesting one. The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. My friends have heard me talk about this a lot. I think Craig Ferguson is the best late night talk show host of all time. He is willing to go to places that a lot of talk show hosts are not willing to go to. And some of that involves like humor and jokes that he uses that might be inappropriate, but also just his monologues. He's been really vulnerable on TV talking about things that no one else would talk about. And I felt like his studio, I think he was with CBS, they gave him so much creative freedom that he was just able to express himself. And he's so funny and so charismatic. And he has some of the best conversations with celebrities that you won't find anywhere else. So go check out Craig Ferguson. Next, this one's kind of a meme, but also just true. Balloon Shop is like one of the OG YouTube channels. I mean, you can see it's from like 2007 is when they started making videos. It's just a crew of 3 guys that were like in high school / college, and they have the funniest skits I've ever seen. And I'm not like a big fan of sketch comedy. I watch like SNL and I don't laugh at all. And I'll watch other YouTubers that do sketches and I'm like, but these guys, the ideas they have for sketches and the quotes, I quote it all the time. And everyone that I quote it to that's actually seen Balloon Shop, they love it too. So I highly recommend that you check this out. It's like the best YouTube channel ever. Nessie Classified. Another show I just have a lot of nostalgia for. Classic Nickelodeon show, but also like I kind of grew up with the characters in a way. I mean, I was too young to know what was going on when it actually came out. But like I watched the reruns on Teen Nick, and that's when I was like going through middle school, and like I saw the kids grow up, and they do such a good job of actually portraying what middle school is like. Like they have actual good tips, survival tips, and they get the quirks and just the weird characters that you encounter in actual middle school. They get it so right. And then the relationships, like Ned and Mose being friends the whole time until the last season where they finally admit that they like each other. It was so good. And it's actually like kind of a tearjerker. The season finale for season 3, it kind of like made me realize that like good things come to an end. It was like the first time as a child, I was probably 10 or 11 when I finished the show. And I was like, it's over, it's done. And I like got depressed. But yeah, I really love Nessie Classified. I think it's really funny and just great characters as well. Don, going back to Caesar. Where he at though? There he is. Don, I just feel like, again, it's a perfect story. And War, I think War is a perfect story, but like, it has a little bit more of an emotional appeal, which I like. But Dawn is so good, and it elevated Rise so much. Like, Rise was a good baseline to start on, and not many people expected Rise of the Planet of the Apes to be good. But then it just was. And then Dawn, like, blew people's socks off. They're like, holy crap. Like, where did this come from? Best Planet of the Apes movie, potentially, if not War. That's all I gotta say. Hot Ones. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. Just a great idea. Let's get celebrities in a really vulnerable position and just make them cry and like gasp for air while eating hot wings and ask them actually good questions. The host, my man Sean Evans, he does a really good job researching and coming up with questions, and he just lets the celebrities do what they do. It's not like other talk shows where it's like, hey guys, let's play a funny game. I always go back to Jimmy Fallon. But it's like a lot of talk shows, and this is also why I like Craig Ferguson. A lot of talk shows now will just be like, oh, let's do a viral trend or play a game or a TikTok, something like. But these shows like Hot Ones and Craig Ferguson, it's just about conversation and letting the celebrity talk about stuff. And you see a different side of them. So I really love Hot Ones. There's been a lot of like great memes that have come out of it with like Shaq and Idris Elba. Great show. Toy Story 2. Okay, so we're dropping down to 9s now. I've only given 19 things on IMDb a 10 out of 10. That should show you how strict I am with my ratings. I have to really, really love something to give it a 10. But now we're down to 9, and these are obviously the closest thing to a 10. I had to cut the video because my voice was literally dying. You could probably hear me going like, this is the closest thing to... Hopefully my voice doesn't do that anymore. Okay, so Toy Story 2, it's our first 9 out of 10. It's just another great Pixar movie. They do a great job of dealing with Woody and like where his loyalties lie, because he leaves Andy. He's like, I got to get back to Andy. But then he's like, wait, maybe I should just stick with Jesse and the crew, which they did a really good job of introducing new characters like Jesse and Bullseye and the Prospector. But then he's like, no, wait, I actually do need to go back to Andy. And then Jesse gets on board. It's just a really good movie. And they get the emotion so well. When Somebody Loved Me. Jesse's little montage. Great movie. Another 2. Toy Story 2. Spider-Man 2. Not my favorite Spider-Man, believe it or not. I think I also have Spider-Man rated a 9 out of 10. Which Spider-Man, I think, is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie. If not that one, Into the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man 2, it's such a good character-driven story, a good look into Peter Parker and his conflict dealing with, do I need to be Spider-Man or do I need to be Peter Parker? Or could I possibly be both? And then the whole thing with Aunt May being like, sometimes we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams. I was like, that's just not a message you hear very much in movies. And they handle it so well. Otto Octavius is a great villain. Harry Osborn is hilarious in this movie. It's still really campy and funny, but the music is great. The action is great. We've gotten some of the best like Spider-Man action scenes from this movie. And yeah, props to Sam Raimi and the crew. Star Trek Into Darkness. That's another 2. I think that's another second installment. I really love the Star Trek rebooted franchise. I don't even know if I'm speaking English anymore. I really love these movies. Star Trek Into Darkness, and then Star Trek and Star Trek Beyond. This one's really good though because it shows Spock get like really angry and just go off on Khan. Khan was a really good menacing villain. It has like a lot of twists, and yeah, I just love the cast. And it's the same thing with Mission Impossible. They have a great crew. It's like I've described this as Mission Impossible in space because it's the same vibe. And J.J. Abrams has worked on both franchises, but they just have a really good like crew of characters that you care about. But then they have a lot of good action as well, and that's why I like it. Revenge of the Sith. This might be controversial. Some of it is kind of sloppy. I'll admit, like when he finally like turns to the dark side after like cutting Mace Windu's hand off, it's like, really? And now you're going to surrender to Palpatine and be like, sure, yes, my master. It's kind of rushed, but everything up to that point makes sense. And I just like that we get to see Anakin turn. And the music is so good in this movie. Obi-Wan, the tensions, and the whole like idea of Order 66. It's like the most dramatic Star Wars movie and the most dynamic as far as characters, in my opinion. General Grievous is awesome as well. That's easily my favorite Star Wars, and it's probably the only one you'll see on this list. Monsters, Inc., another great Pixar movie. Very sad ending, but also kind of hopeful. I was kind of like ticked off. I thought I was just going to leave it at that, but I was ticked off that when they made a Monsters, Inc. sequel, it was a prequel, and I was like, why can't we see them reunite with Boo? They literally set it up for them to see Boo again. And then they're like, oh, let's just take them to college. Which I still had fun with Monsters University, but it's not very good. A Quiet Place. Rewatched it last night. Really, really solid movie. It just cuts out all the unnecessary stuff. It's only an hour and a half. And I appreciate movies that do that. John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, the girl that has like the earpiece, the deaf girl, and the kid that's in it that's also in Ford v Ferrari, all of them bring their A game. The acting is really good, and it's just a solid story. Really emotional, great ending. X-Men Days of Future Past. Best X-Men movie. I don't think that's very debatable. Unless you want to count Logan, an X-Men movie, in which I would still say Days of Future Past is better. They balanced all these characters so well, and it had such a difficult task of like bringing the old with the new, and they blended it so well, and they did the right thing by just making it about Logan and Mystique. Especially Mystique. She has a lot to do in that movie, and it's really interesting with her like whole, does she follow Magneto or Professor X? And it's really cool. More Hugh Jackman. What do you know? Prisoners. I rewatched this a couple of weeks ago, and it's one of the best dramas. This one's kind of long, a little bit slower paced, but it's so good. These guys both, I would say, have their best performances in this movie, and it's just tense the whole time. It's very grounded, a little bit scary, but it's so good. Had to cut the video again because my voice is still dying, and I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster now. Batman Begins. You know what? The Office. You know what? I'm gonna change this while we're filming. Batman Begins. I've talked about. I just think it's like the best start to a superhero movie. And The Office. I'm gonna in front of your very eyes right now, this very moment. I'm gonna change that to an 8. I really loved it when it came out, but rewatching it, I don't think it holds up as much. I still think it's a good show, but I think it's a little bit overrated, and fans kind of ruin it. Good Will Hunting, another really good drama, emotional story, character driven. Spider-Man, it's probably my favorite like Spider-Man movie that we've gotten. I just think it does everything right, and there's a lot that people forget about with. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Mary Jane and Peter's relationship is really sweet in that movie, and Green Goblin is fantastic. That's the thing everybody remembers. But yeah, I love Spider-Man. Ford v Ferrari, probably the best movie I've seen in the past few years, except for maybe Top Gun Maverick, which it should be on here. Kick-Ass, really fun, like wholesome movie. Like it's one of those movies that's like a parody of the superhero genre, which they've done a billion times at this point. But it was like one of the earlier ones, and it was like actually fresh, and it actually still told like a good story with like meaningful characters and stuff. Forrest Gump, I've only seen one time. I rated it in 2015. I don't remember that much about it, but I remember thinking it was really good. So there's that. Prisoner of Azkaban is the best Harry Potter. Dark Knight Rises is overlooked a little bit from The Dark Knight. The Departed is another incredible drama. I think it's Martin Scorsese. The acting is phenomenal. There's so many good actors, and it's just a really interesting story with like having two moles in the police and like the mafia or the gangs. It's really cool. La La Land brought me to tears. I have no shame in admitting that. Great relationship between Mia and Sebastian, played by your favorites, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. Just great movie. The Avengers, this is what I would say the best MCU movie to date. Not overdone by Infinity War or Endgame. The Avengers is the pinnacle. It was very surprising. Don't look into his eyes for too long. But it was like one of the first horror movies I saw in theaters. I had such a good time in the theater because everyone was like, oh. There was like a packed theater. A bunch of high schoolers were there. We were like laughing and like getting scared throughout the whole thing. Really good character development with all the kids and just a nice relationship with the cast. Wonder Woman, very surprising movie as well. Solid. You know what? I'm going to drop that down to an 8 as well. But it's still really good. I was very scared for this movie. And it actually turned out pretty good. Like they actually gave a crap about the character and the messages. And it turned out pretty solid. Not the same story as the second one. The second one was, oh my gosh, it was awful. Let's back up a little bit. Iron Man, another top tier MCU movie. It kind of started it all, and it just did everything right. It was just focused on Tony Stark and his arc, not his arc reactor, but his arc, character arc. Toy Story, I have all of the Toy Stories in here at this point. It's just a really good movie, and I quote it all the time. I think it's really funny. Great story as well, as far as like Woody learning to let go of some of his pride and selfishness, and let Buzz be, have the spotlight for a little bit, and everyone getting along. Jack Reacher is a movie I haven't seen in a long time, but I remember liking it a lot. And there's another Tom Cruise movie. What do you know? Top Gun Maverick. I made a video on it. Check it out if you want to hear my thoughts on it. But it kind of blew me away. The Matrix. I'm going to change that. I'm going to drop this to an 8 as well. I loved it the first time I saw it. Second time I saw it, I still thought like that's a really cool, like interesting movie. But maybe not deserving of a 9. I don't know. Moving on, Into the Spider-Verse. Such a well-told story. Beautifully animated. Get some really cool action. So creative. Good soundtrack as well. Silence of the Lambs. Just, yeah, like one of the best thrillers. Great mystery. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are just incredible in this movie. And yeah, I think that honestly may have been one of the first like rated R movies I saw, and I was just like, it's really good. Edge of Tomorrow, another surprising Tom Cruise. I'm gonna look like a Tom Cruise fanboy going through these movies. I promise I'm not, but maybe I am. I don't know. Edge of Tomorrow was surprising. Hacksaw Ridge, really great war movie. I think it's the best war movie. I think it's even better than Saving Private Ryan, which I've talked about. I think I've talked about this movie in another video as well. But I like how it's more focused on one character, Desmond Doss, who's not even a character. He's a real life dude. It's a really compelling story, and it moved me a lot. Back to the Future is one of my favorite classic movies. You're not going to see a lot of old movies on here. This one does crack the list. I just really like Marty and George, especially. Like, George kills me in this movie. But yeah, really good movie. I don't even know if this deserves to be here, to be honest. I watched these when I was probably 16, like the whole Bourne. It became like I guess a 5-entry series, but I watched like the original trilogy and I liked all of them, but I don't remember much about them. X-Men, solid. This is a random movie that like no one really knows about, but I found it to be really good. The Place Beyond the Pines with Ryan Gosling, Bradley Cooper. Really interesting movie. I highly recommend. Star Trek Beyond is a very fun movie. That's how I would describe it. We're probably going to see some 7s now that I'm thinking about it, because we're already in the 8s and we're only at 50. I have no... I have no clue why I have this at an 8. I guess when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's just that good. Oh, what the heck is that? Ah! Let's change that to a 6. Sure. Sorry, Jim. Sorry. Oh gosh, no! I hit it again. I got him! Hurry up! Okay. I think the next one was Source Code. It's like, you would think Source Code would just be like a generic sci-fi action, whatever. But by the end, it's like actually kind of touching. And that's, obviously, I just love... Okay, I don't care. This has been saying this is the first time I had this laptop, the first day. Anyway, it's surprisingly touching and like pulls on your heartstrings in the end. So, Source Code's good. Catching Fire, easily the best Hunger Games book and movie. Don't care what you think. Star Trek, again, I just like these movies. The cast, the crew, they're so good. Stronger is a really like another moving film that like tells like a really interesting story about one of the Boston Marathon survivors who doesn't really feel like he deserves all the attention and like glory that he's getting as being a survivor. It's like it's just a really unique story, and Jake Gyllenhaal, I love him, and he does a great job portraying that guy. I don't remember his name. Oh, well, there it is. Jeff Bauman. Good movie. Lone Ranger, that's going to be very unpopular. But I have a blast with this movie. It has a lot of good action, and the soundtrack is impeccable. This is a very overlooked Hans Zimmer soundtrack, but it's really, really good. And watching like the Lone Ranger come to be the Lone Ranger is cool. Tonto is hilarious. The Invisible Man, really surprising horror movie. It had one of the most shocking scenes I've ever seen in a theater. Like, my jaw just dropped and the theater was silent. You probably know what scene I'm talking about. But it deals with really, really interesting themes too. Here's an interesting one. Justice League War. I watched this with my brothers one day and I was just like, that was really good. Don't really remember what it's about, but it's good. Castaway, I think it's another movie I've only seen once, but it was really solid. This is another movie I've only seen once, so I don't remember a whole lot. We watched it in school, and I was like, wow, this is actually a good movie we're watching in school. Surprising. That's probably why I have it up there. Lilo and Stitch I watched a few months ago. Yep, you can see. That's when I rated it. I had seen it before, but like on rewatch, I was like, that's actually pretty solid. Really good family movie. Never Let Me Go is I think it's based off of a book. It has Andrew Garfield, and I love Andrew Garfield. That's why I watched it. He gives a really good performance. Carey Mulligan and Keira Knightley also do. And it's an interesting, like, kind of dystopian future story, and it made me cry. Speaking of crying, About Time made me cry like a baby. Highly recommend if you want to cry. The ending really got me. Squid Game I have at an 8 out of 10. I made a video on this. It had strokes of genius. There were a couple of episodes and a couple of moments that made me want to say the show was like one of the best shows I've ever seen. But how it ended, I wasn't super satisfied with, so I ended up giving it an 8 out of 10. Ratatouille, really solid movie. The Crucible, this one surprised me. This was another one I watched in school because we read the book. But surprisingly, I thought it was a really good movie and just a really good story in general. And Daniel Day-Lewis, he's probably the best actor of all time. He's in it and he's fantastic. Leave me my name. Kingdom of Heaven, another school movie. I think I watched it in military history because my teacher somehow said it was about, I mean, it's like the Crusades, so that I guess that ties in. But yeah, I really liked it. Now You See Me, that probably doesn't deserve to have an 8. I'm going to drop it. I haven't seen this in a really long time, but I can't imagine it's actually like an 8 out of 10. I think it's pretty good, but we're going to change it. It's now a 7. Moving on. 7. What I just gave a 7 and then 7. Okay, Interstellar. I have it at an 8, but I would have it like realistically probably like a 7.5. Not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, but it's pretty solid. 7 is a great crime drama. I need to rewatch Monsters vs. Aliens. I probably have it at an 8 out of 10 because I thought it was so funny. Especially the scene with the president playing Axel F. Continuing on, Family Guy. As much as people say like it fell off and it's not funny anymore, I found it pretty funny throughout the whole series. This is a show I've watched every single episode of. And I love the early seasons, but like it did drop a little bit in quality as it went on, but it's still funny. Penny Warp, really good movie. Creed, really good movie. The Blind Side, this is one I watched a lot as a kid, and it was just like a really inspiring story. Heartfelt. Sandra Bullock brings her A game, and does a really good job. Django is my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. I feel like it's one of the most character-focused stories he's ever made because most of the time he just makes weird, I don't even know what to call his films, but they're just weird. And this one's actually like kind of focused, and I thought it was really good. Lone Survivor. This is one I watched like with my dad and brothers, and we were just like, military. That's why I have it there. I need to rewatch that one too. Another military movie. This one like flew under the radar, but I watched it because I like Kate Mara, and it was a really heartfelt, interesting look into like someone who was kind of reluctant to join the military and just joined because like she didn't really know what to do. And yeah, she becomes a Marine and she gets attached to this dog that helps her, and it's really heartfelt. Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess I have that there. I'm not going to change it. I am not going to apologize. And I'm not going to say anything else. Another military movie. This one was just really solid. Bradley Cooper. I'm pretty sure he gained like 50 pounds for this role, and it was really good. Chris Kyle, his story is really, really inspiring. Jurassic Park. Classic movie. Just incredible. The Martian. Haven't seen it in a while, but I remember thinking it was really good. Saving Private Ryan, great war film. Not as good as Hacksaw, but great. Very good. Another military movie, if you want to call it that. Tropic Thunder is like one of the best comedies I've seen. I'm not a big comedy guy, but that one is hilarious. The Big Short I watched for the first time in February. And it was just really intriguing because it's a true story about the stock market crash of like 2008 and all the people that lost their jobs. And it's really interesting how some people saw it coming. Christian Bale plays the guy that was like, he was the one that's like, okay, yeah, we need to short everything or something. I don't know the technical jargon, but he knew it. And it's like a true story. I thought it was really cool. Oh, there's The Office again, since I re-rated it. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Solid movie, not as good as the other two, but still pretty good. Gifted is a random movie that I watched because I think I saw some like press stuff with Chris Evans and McKenna Grace. It's just a really sweet relationship between these two, and it has actually some good music as well. Sixth Sense, which I haven't seen in a while. That's the only time I've watched it in 2018. I thought it was really good. Bruce Willis. And like there were some really interesting twists. And if I remember correctly, there's a scene with a woman in a car and it's like really emotional and it really grabbed my attention and moved me. X-Men 2? I mean X2. One of the best X-Men films. They did a really good job of like juggling all these different characters and still providing like a coherent story and good theme. It's kind of a funny story. This is one I talked about in like my video where I did the favorite movies of my lifetime, which a lot of these are probably on that video. But this was like a really good, it's kind of a dark, morbid story, but it manages to like find a light at the end of the tunnel. And there's really good performances, and it moved me. A lot of these movies just like made an impact on me or made me think about things in a different way or just feel something. Oh, gosh. My voice is still dying, but we're almost done. Yeah, this is a really good movie. Skyfall or Casino Royale, those two are my favorite James Bond films. Leon the Professional, I watched for the first time almost a year ago. Really solid. Another movie kind of like Gifted where like it's an odd pairing of people but a really sweet relationship. This was a very like overlooked movie. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That was actually really solid. Like it's based off of either a book or a series of books. And me and my brother saw it and we were like, that was actually pretty good. It's actually kind of freaky. And I like the teenagers that are in it. There were some good characters. A Bug's Life, another Pixar entry, solid film. Whiplash, getting close to the end. That was my first like movie that I was like, I am a film connoisseur. I'm going to watch this artsy movie by Damien Chazelle. And I felt like a film scholar after I watched it. Obviously, I'm not. But yeah, it's really good. Really incredible performances by Miles Teller and J.K., your boy, Joe Kiger. J.K. Simmons. Shark Tale. This one's kind of a meme rating because like it's obviously not an 8 out of 10, but it kind of has a dear place in my heart, and it's kind of freaking funny. Brothers is a really interesting. It's another military movie. I didn't realize I had this many movies about like war or military. Really interesting movie about a guy who like goes off to Afghanistan and he's presumed to be dead, but then he comes back. And it's like the family dynamic of everyone dealing with it. You can tell how like all of that affects an entire family. Really interesting. My last viewing of it was like a month ago. And it was like, I was like, that was so good. I liked it more than I ever had. Wizard of Oz. I've talked about this one. It's like the only like really old movie that I actually think is a great story. And then finally, hang with me, the Lego Batman movie. Watched it about a year ago and was very pleasantly surprised. Like it actually got into the character of Bruce Wayne and like how he was lonely and he needed a family. And I was like, dang, okay. It went there and it succeeded. And that is going to conclude my top 100 ratings on IMDb. Again, thank you guys so much for subscribing to my channel. Recently, we hit 100 subscribers. Obviously, I think I'm at like 111 now, so I'm a little bit late to this video. But we still got here, and I'm glad that you were with me on the ride, and look forward to us reaching 1 million subscribers in the next couple weeks. Peace!